Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here before you to introduce this project within the elements category, Traverse. Starting with the site, the main road, a narrow side street runs parallel to the sound of the OEM International Public School and the silence of the nearby residences leading to the site. This is a little bit slow. Okay. Situated there is the residence hedge, a dwelling that captivates attention with its distinctive character and inviting element it exudes. As we stroll along the road, the lush green vegetation enveloping the area and the rural ambience immediately captures our attention, leading us to pause and appreciate the modern interpretation of a climatic responsive design. Now that we grasp the context, let's delve into the details to understand why the element was essential to finalize the design. The client approached us with a request of a modest three-bedroom residence designed to be open from within and to embrace the tranquility of its surroundings. Hedges positioned to face the west, as its facade is exposed to the intense afternoon sun throughout the year. Upon reviewing the plan, we aim to establish a buffer on the ground floor. Upon reviewing the plan, we aim to establish a buffer on the ground floor by incorporating a lush green courtyard. This was intended to mitigate the intensity of sunlight reaching the spaces behind, thereby reducing the harshness of the light. In the section view, it is evident that the first floor will be exposed directly to the sunlight. To address this, we strategically position the toilets as a buffer. Additionally, the mutual shading of the building contributes to keeping the living spaces and dining on the ground floor cool throughout the day. The prevailing wind direction is in the area naturally aids in cooling the space, prompting us to focus on detailing that allows for optimal airflow while also strategically blocking direct sunlight along its path. Now it's time to meticulously craft the element, ensuring privacy of each spaces align with its functions. While the living areas remain open, the ground floor bedrooms necessitate privacy. Therefore, we aligned, as you can see there, we angled the details to prevent direct visibility into the interior spaces. Now let's incorporate a design feature to accommodate the car within the building, maintaining the same concept of privacy and sun protection. This entails implementing a movable detail that shields the sunlight trajectory while allowing seamless access for the vehicle. To streamline pedestrian access without requiring the opening of the moving detail each time, we introduced a separate pedestrian gate for easier entry. So here stands hedge, enveloped in the warmth and character of cotton steel, beckoning you to embrace it entirely as you traverse around, completing its essence. Upon scrutinizing the details, our aim was simplicity and elegance. Initially, we envisioned thick 10 mm plates, but the budget constraints allowed only 2 mm plates. We accommodate this. We introduced 6 mm polished rods We introduced 6 polished rods between the plates, reinforcing their position and strength while maintaining the desired aesthetic. The sliding panel features as an unconventional top rail made of 50 circular tube. We designed the sliding mechanism with 8 ball bearings positioned on 6 hung plate at both ends of the gate. This mechanism in detail A is described in detail A, while the locking system described in detail B presents a slight challenge. Only those who are familiar with the operation can unlock it, otherwise it remains a mystery. The rotating plate facilitates both the unlocking and locking the gate at any desired position. The element provides privacy shield from the sun and improves airflow by channeling wind into the building, keeping an interior spaces cool. Additionally, the material selection ensures that the detail ages gracefully with the building, continuously altering the color palette. Despite its location at the front, courtyards from the inside offer enhanced privacy. Overall, the element completes the building, enriching both the interiors and the exterior views. This endeavor represents a humble attempt to elevate the ordinary into something extraordinary. And this is Travos. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and we had the benefit of a relatively intense and enjoyable discussion at the site also. And thank you for bringing the fabricators there, and it was a much larger conversation, but I was surprised to find the fabricator and a very experienced old man, but had a deep connection with this whole act of making. I find this particularly a interesting element because it ostensibly looks very simple, but needs a whole range of restraint to bring it out. And what that project does I just felt after reaching the site that there were a few possibilities that the element created when you move it, or because it was creating multiple spaces, which you described that the two brothers would enjoy. And so I just felt that's probably the next stage. It could have been because of affordability, but the setting up and the moving of those elements also were changing the nature in which one entered the house or the side space, or what do you lock, what do you open, and the kind of porosity that the house gave. It looks extremely porous from the outside, but you go in and there's a certain opacity which you need, and I think it worked at all those levels. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
much. Very little observation or very little questions there. The only thing that struck me, of course, it's very well crafted. Unfortunately, I think we both didn't go there. We didn't manage it. Partly because the distances are enormous to travel. And our body couldn't take it. 12 hours every day traveling, maybe 18 hours sometime. It just was a bit too much then. Sorry for that. But what I feel is, if you are doing something mobile, like we saw it earlier with Sachin, right? The Line Studio, where he's using the bridge to do more than only, it's more than the mechanism. It is also partly a social act. You connect. I feel the significance that this gate has by moving away and letting a car in is, for me, little too less. It is then only about the gate and the mechanism. But if I would have seen and extended this idea of making a building respond to climate, that's one agenda. but I could have stretched it to a social, to my neighborhood. Why does a building not relate today? And I think that's a big question in our urbanization. Why doesn't it relate to the neighbors? Who are the neighbors? I don't know who the neighbors are in your case. You shown an aerial view, we zoom in, you see some roads and all, but we don't know. So if I make this kind of arrangement that closes and opens, it has the other side. We don't see the other side. Is there a highway? No, of course not. There's another neighbor, a plot, another house. I would like to see how this relates to each other. Right now, it looks to me like a gate for the car to get in. Boom, it closes over. My house is secure. I felt that was too little for me. Of course, I'm reiterating that. It's beautifully done. My problem is then when you say cotton steel, it ages. One building, that's the Devki Art Foundation in Delhi, done by Aniket Bhagwat. Absolutely stunning piece of art. It was brought down because the energies, and I don't know the reason for it, but I'm speculating, the energies around cotton steel as a building material. I know young people love it because in the journals and magazines, they look absolutely stunning. They look earthen, but have you come close in a hot climate to a steel sheet of that thickness? It's like it actually emits heat. In fact, interestingly, it's not only the physical heat, it's almost like the body rejects it. Cotton steel and Devaki Art Foundation was brought down. It was such an appalling building, not from its aesthetics, but from its material application. So I don't know, at the pedestrian level, at the level where you enter the house, you got this cotton steel. How comforting is that for the body? And architecture, after all, is to do with the body. You're talking about sun, comfort, shading, all that. But when it comes to something so close, for example, if I hold a cotton steel at daytime in Delhi, I'm from Delhi. I have done that in some restaurants where the railings are in steel. Temperature 50 degree. Try to hold a 50-degree steel piece. You'll burn your hands. Right? How do you handle that?
May I answer the question? Hello? Hello? So may I answer the question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Actually, I think better than me, Durganand sir can explain it much better because I don't think he felt that heat inside the residence or the or in the metal, I think, because this is kind of a hot summer in there. Like all the plants were completely burned out, and I didn't actually feel that kind of heat. I hope if you would have visited the project, like it would actually this presentation doesn't justify that, because I know that because the presentation was already made and it was sent earlier. So this presentation doesn't justify doesn't justify the entire building. But as in my experience, we didn't have that kind of a hot. Yeah, of course the climate is too hot now, and we had a situation where the outside plants are completely burned out because the father of the client was maintaining it and he got sick. So for 2 weeks we couldn't water the plants. So at that condition itself, the entire but the plants inside the cotton steel, I think he can see the difference. The plants which were standing inside the cotton steel was beautifully. It was beautifully there. It doesn't have any issues with the heat. If there was a problem like that, the first thing that would happen is the inside plants will go off. So the inside plants was there. So and we have used the wind direction of the site. I can assuredly say that because the wind direction of the site is purely used inside that building, and we have angled the plates in such a way that we can get the maximum wind inside the building, so that we don't have AC in that building. That is the first thing. And I know you can't believe that because you have already said me an experience once in a while. Like so in this building we don't have an AC. So I am that confident that the building is not getting that hot, and the client was really happy with the outcome of the building. And in case of the cotton steel, we don't the material that we have chosen is because since we can't paint the thing for every 3 years or 4 years. So that, and I wanted the building to age, and we have actually planted trees, two larger trees in front of the building, so that after 10 to 15 years the building will be completely covered, and this will just allow the wind to direct inside the building. So I think if you would have visited, there was no point of me explaining this and all. So I myself know this presentation is not justifying the entire building.
Yeah, since you implicated me, I'm coming back in. But let's look at the conversation we had at the site.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, a lot of it, because it was a long conversation, I didn't repeat it here. In the context of what Virendra just said, projects of this kind, and this happens with every architect, projects of this kind, I see as work in progress. I don't see a finiteness of an element. It's a work in progress. So there are many times I go back, and most often I do projects only for patrons I know, who can take the liberty to call me and say something is not working or working. So these are really, I see as tentative projects. One reason I suggested that you could travel to Ahmedabad and look at those 60s and 70s buildings where steel was used in that way was so that that conversation with steel, whether it's heat, whether it is when steel touches concrete, you look at the 60s buildings, heroic buildings, but our professor now calls them the dancing fins. Now, they're made accurate, but over time, they have a possibility of dancing, because the concrete will expand very differently. That's why we talked at length on that, on what is the conversation between materials when steel speaks to stone, when steel speaks to concrete, when concrete speaks to brick. And because they have differential behavior in a certain climate, so I said, I am not able to judge it. That's what I said. I am not able to judge this because I have not used cotton steel. But it would be good to see projects as work in progress, to see new possibilities. For instance, now, let's see the issue. I'll just bring it up because I've got implicated here. I just thought it was amazing that the neighboring properties were the brothers. And he has already thought, but there was a budget constraint. So he has thought of those communal spaces where they'll come together. And I just saw that this element moving. In fact, I didn't mention the car because I didn't see it part of the element. So the car, I would agree with that. Luckily, the car was not there. So I said, I hope it never comes here. But we didn't discuss it but otherwise, that moving of the, that I saw it as it was generating another sense of enclosure within that other space there, and it was that other door was opening in another way. So you are getting other kinds of ambiguous spaces where these brothers meet. And we discussed that. I said, you're getting these spaces. Then there were budgetary constraints. So I didn't see it as an element there. It was just there. That element was showing several possibilities. And I'm finding that many a times, and it happens to us also, we may see the possibility or may see it 4 years later, or may see it 3 years later. But when I went there, that's the reason I began. I don't know how much is happening as an imagination in my mind. Am I beginning to read things or, something? But you were conscious that the brothers would all meet in that space, So I think that earlier conversation where there's a tangibility of an element, but also come to look at what does this element do in terms of gestures of inhabitation. And if we start looking at it that way, as what is the possibility? Did it create porosity? Did it create a layering in the house? Did it create... And yes, if, let's say it heats up, if there is an example where it's been toned down, I think investigating, understanding why it's toned down is an important work in progress. But if not, there are other solutions of how you combine wood and this fin to develop it further. So there is always so if one looks at it as a reflective work in progress,
Yeah.
I think the relationship to the presentation or what's happening or the house would be very, very different. But most presentations are happening very finitely onto a project at the level of part and this context of the context. And because I was just amazed that the brothers were the neighbors, and he had thought of this whole thing that they come there and this moving. So I think those conversations really kind of enlighten us on what can happen because of a simple element like that. Yeah, thank you.
And one more thing to add, sir, as I first said, this is actually inside of a school. So we actually intended to do the building in that kind of a way there where people can see, like the children can see it from their hostel block, and also they always question, they usually come to the site when the work was happening, and the parents also come to the site. So they see buildings in a different way. Like we don't have that kind of a building around. I don't think like in around 2 or 4 kilometers we don't have that kind of a building. 5 kilometers away I have done another one. So I can surely say that it is not, as you said, it is not in not that kind of a manner, but this building is also contributing to the society that architecture can do something, and it may be a little bit different, but there we give the hope that something can be done. Like these are not actually the buildings as like his brother's house also. This is not kind of a like it's a normal house. So people see architecture as a like the element that comes in within the building. So it just shows how we can explore on buildings and what architecture can do. So I think that is the like the vision that we are putting forward. Thank you.